Symbols provide the ability to place objects in your designs that may be used to identify specific features without the need to recreate these graphics each time they are used. This increases drawing quality and speeds production while allowing for consistency within and across projects. In MicroStation, symbols are known as cells and are stored in cell libraries. So let's jump into MicroStation, where we are going to create cells of furniture and equipment symbols that will be placed on the floor plan. So here we are inside of MicroStation. Let's begin by opening the furniture equipment scratch file. This file contains the geometry for the furniture and equipment symbols that will be used in the creation of floor plan cells. Here, you will see the furniture and equipment is in its completed state. You will formally create cells for this geometry. However, you will first design a table with chair components for use in the main dining area. Then, you will subsequently create cells from the existing geometry. So let's begin by panning to the right, away from other graphics. So here we're going to start the creation of the geometry for the table and chair set. And we'll begin with the geometry for the table. Let's ensure that the active level is a furniture seat. Next, we'll make the active tool place block. And then coming into the view, we'll issue a data point for the first corner of the block. We'll move the cursor to the right and key in a distance of 914 millimeters. We'll then move the cursor up and key in a distance of 914 millimeters. From here, we will issue a data point for the opposite corner. Alright, so we just finished the task of laying out the geometry for our table. We'll now move to the task of creating the chair geometry. So with the place block tool still active, in the area adjacent to the table, we'll issue a data point for the first corner of the chair. We'll move the cursor to the right and key in a distance of 458 millimeters. We'll then move the cursor up and key in a distance of 508 millimeters. Then we'll issue a data point. So, continuing with creating the geometry for the chair, let's make the active tool copy parallel. In the tool settings window, we'll set the method to segment of element, the mode to miter, the distance will be 50 millimeters, and let's make sure that the use active attributes option is enabled. Next, we'll pick the top horizontal line of the rectangle that we just placed. We'll move the cursor downward and place a single copy. So let's change our tool now to the Construct Circular Fillet. This can be found in the Modify ribbon group of the Home tab. The Construct Circular Fillet tool is used to construct a circular fillet between two elements, two segments of a line string, or two sides of a shape. When you construct a circular fillet between two segments of a line string, the line string is broken into two independent line strings, an arc. The truncate settings sets which sides of the fillet are truncated. When you select none, neither element or segment is truncated. When you select both elements or segments are truncated at their point of tangency with the fillet. If a fillet is constructed between two closed elements or an open and a closed element, the closed elements are not modified. And if you select first, the first element or segment selected is truncated at its point of tangency with the fillet. Alright, so coming into the tool settings window, we're going to set the following. For the radius, we'll set this to be 50 millimeters. And we'll set truncate to both. Bringing the cursor into the view, at each vertex of the chair, we'll select both of the line segments. The result is an arc tangent to the two line segments that we selected. Furthermore, the selected lines are trimmed back to the point of tangency. So, we'll go ahead and repeat this now for the other three corners. So now that we're finished with the task of creating the geometry for the chair will now be precisely oriented with the table. So for this, we're going to select the Move tool, and we're going to position the cursor up and to the left of the chair. Next, we'll press and hold the left mouse button and drag down and to the right, creating a selection window. Then we can release the mouse button. thereby selecting the graphics. Now, along the bottom of the chair, let's snap to the midpoint. Here, we'll issue a data point to establish this location as the base point for the move. Next, let's snap to the midpoint of the top horizontal line segment of the table. On the keyboard, let's press the letter O, invoking the Origin AccuDraw shortcut. We'll move the cursor in an upward direction, indexing to the Y-axis. Here, let's key in a distance of 76 millimeters and issue a data point to move the chair. So now that we oriented the chair with the table, our next task here is to add additional chairs to the table. For this, we'll select the Rotate tool. Then coming into the Tool Settings window, we'll set the method to Active Angle, the angle to 90 degrees, and we'll enable copies, and we'll set the value to 3. As before, we'll create a selection window around the chair. Next, we'll press the C key, invoking the center snap. With a data point, we'll select the table as the base point. The center snap will automatically locate the center of the table as the base point for rotation. Next, we'll press C, again invoking the center snap. From here, we'll select the table as the pivot point. As a result, the selected graphics for the chair are both rotated and copied. So now that we're finished creating the geometry that represents the table and chairs, we can now move forward with the process of creating a dining table cell. To begin creating the dining table cell, we'll select the Place Fence tool. This can be found in the Selection ribbon group of the Home tab. In the tool settings, we'll set the fence type to block and the fence mode to inside. Then coming into the view, we'll place a fence around the geometry representing the tables and chairs. Next, we need to define the cell origin. This tool can be found along the Annotate tab in the Cells ribbon group. Now this tool is tucked away, so we had to click on the drop down and select it from this menu here. Now coming into the view, we'll press the C key, invoking the center snap. Here we'll pick the table and issue a data point to place the cell origin. This is how the insertion point of the cell will be determined. Our next step is to add the cell to the cell library. So from the Cells ribbon group, we'll click the Dialog Launcher to open up the cell library dialog. From the cell library dialog, we'll click File, Attach File. Here we'll select the cell library named Building Furniture. This will open up the cell library. We will now create several new cells, adding them to the library. In the cell library dialog, let's click the Create button and then set the following. For the name, Dining Table 4. For the description, we'll type in Dining Table with 4 chairs. And for the type, Graphic. From here, we can click the Create button. As a result, the new cell is added to the library and is available for use. So let's go ahead and review the newly added cell. Take note, graphic cells retain their original attributes, with the geometry of the cell being placed with the original level, color, line style, and line weight that it was drawn with. Using the same techniques as before, we're going to create cells from this existing geometry that we have here. And we'll start with the counter and fish tank geometry. Take note, use snap points as illustrated for placing the cell origin. Utilize the intersect snap mode at the corners of the walls and the center snap mode for the lobster tank. When placing a fence as part of the steps for cell creation, ensure that the fence includes all the furniture but do not include the wall segments. The walls are for construction purposes and not intended to be part of the cell in the library. For the first cell that we're creating here, this is going to be a fish tank with a countertop that's located in the sushi bar area. So let's begin creating this cell. So here we'll come in and we'll place a fence around this geometry. For the counter and fish tank, we'll place the origin in the lower left corner here, utilizing the intersection snap mode at the corner of the walls. Keep in mind, do not include the wall segments here. We'll hit the Create button for the cell. We'll give this the name Counter and Fish Tank. For the description, counter, storage underneath, fish tank above. For our next cell, this is going to be a fish tank that's going to be located in the waiting area. We'll begin by placing a fence around this geometry. For the origin, we'll utilize the intersection snap mode at the corner of the walls. We'll hit the Create button. We'll give this a name, Waiting Fish Tank, and the description, Waiting Area with Fish Tank. Now, for our third cell, this is the Hostess station that's also located in the waiting area. So to begin, we'll place a fence around this geometry. Next, we'll place the origin, again utilizing the intersection snap mode at the corner of the walls. We'll hit the Create button again. For the name of this is Waiting Hostess Station, and the description is Waiting Area with Hostess Station. And for our last cell, this is the Lobster tank. This is going to be located between the waiting area and the sushi bar. Let's finish this last one. We'll start by placing a fence around this geometry. Next, we'll use the center snap mode for the Lobster tank. We'll hit the Create button. Here, we'll give it the name, Lobster tank. And for the description, we'll call it the same thing, Lobster tank. So now that we're finished creating the cells, let's take a moment and review each of the cells in the cell library. During this lesson, you learned how to create a cell. Cells for the proposed restaurant were added to an existing cell library. The process of creating a cell involved placing a fence to define the geometry that was to make up the cell. A cell origin was identified to provide the insertion point for when the cell was placed in a design. Care was taken to locate the origin precisely. The location of the origin point can make placing the cell easier. And the cells were created, adding each of them to the new cell library, making them immediately available for use in any design file.
If you found this video helpful, please give it a like. If you want to see more such series, consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you, and see you next time.